Hello. Welcome back to church. Get your little yarmulkes on. Get that prayer rug out. Put this on. Roll up a number. Get you a nice spliffer bill. And let's get right to it. I don't want to bore you with my life. Tell you what I've been doing the past week and a half, whatever. You know it. I show it. I've been recording music. I've been picking out beats, putting some together, drop another fucking album. Next month, we're gonna drop another one like the other one. Yes, sir. 2025. I'm trying to drop at least 5 albums. So I dropped one in February, early February. We're gonna do it again. April, probably around 420. We're going to call it the 88 Rising. Just kidding. No, that's a 4chan joke. Just kidding. But I do got an album in the works. I'm thinking of a name. I don't know if I'm going to draw the cover for this one. I don't know who actually cares or listens to this or anything I do. So if you actually do, leave a comment, subscribe, kill yourself. This week, I wanted to take a step away from the news, Like I said, these first, I don't know how many episodes, we're working it out. We're trying things. I've recorded on different things. I've recorded with different things. I got a little camera I'm working on setting up. I found out it's got a mic. The first couple video episodes might look like, I'm applying for a job interview and I have to send in a video resume or something. It's fine. We're going to work it out. We'll find better cameras. We'll reach new heights. But one thing we won't do is give up. That's not for us. There's no losers in this house, Joe Rogan. No fucking losers. We're here. We're going to win. That's all there is to it. And the only thing I better hear in the comments is, yes, sir. Now, this week, I wanted to get a little deep with y'all, get a little metaphysical. I've been watching a couple things and listening to a couple audiobooks on the soul, on understanding consciousness, and I've been listening to Tusculan Disputations, a book by Cicero. Check it out. The full audiobook is free on YouTube. Apparently, this book was on Thomas Edison's reading list. Forget who else's fucking reading list it was on. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, some founding fathers. But it was definitely on Edison's. And I'm not saying Thomas Edison was a good person, I'm not saying anybody's a good person. You're probably a bad person, especially if you think you're a good person. Those are the worst people. I hate them. But looking at the levels achieved by certain people, I would say that Edison, although probably in some of the worst ways imaginable, reached some of the greatest heights possible for the time. He is, what's the word for it? They say he invented like 500 different things, from the light bulb to who cares. We know, a lot of us know, if you've done your research, that Edison owned a company. People who were inventors, aspiring inventors, used to work for him, and it was like working at Disney or something. Anything you come up with while you're under our contract is our intellectual property. It's not yours. You don't own this. Edison took it even a step further. If you invented something in Edison's workshop, he didn't even have to put your name on it. It was Edison's invention because he understood the longevity he was trying to create with this. And I mean, what are the people going to do? A lot of these inventors were probably just poor farmers or, lower class citizens in cities, industrial cities that were just coming up. So they would gladly give up their ideas for a comfortable life. Much like a lot of us right now in our current positions would give up the rights to a lot of our intellectual property, whatever the fuck that means. Intellectual property doesn't do dick for me. My intellectual property doesn't make me come, it doesn't make me numb, and it doesn't feed me. So, yeah, I know, I'm sure a lot of writers and artists in general today don't own a lot of their intellectual property because they're under certain contracts. And even more writers and artists would give their intellectual property willingly if it meant that they have a steady income. If you give them $1,000 a month and be like, hey, any idea you have, I own. I got cameras on you. I'm going to make sure that if you come out and try to patent anything or release something, it's got my name on it, And thinking about not anything really related to that, but more so the different positions people are in and how everybody's leading a different life. One man in one position might be willing to sell all of his intellectual property because he has nothing. And so to be able to have a clean home and a steady flow of water to the home would mean a lot more than being able to go around and say, I invented that, that is my idea, especially as long as the ideas still end up benefiting the people it should. And I thought about the souls of these people, the souls of all people, not just Americans, not just Haitians, not just Guamanians, and not just the Guyanese, but of all souls, And in the Tusculan Disputations, this book I was listening to by Cicero, they bring up a good argument, and the argument is, what is the soul? What is the soul besides what we feel it to be, or what we've understood it to be? And I heard from Deepak Chopra a really good quote. It's that we're not, people with souls living in existence and experiencing a life, or bodies with souls. We are actually souls first, with bodies, living a human experience today. It is completely possible that you are a soul first, right? Let's say before coming into being, before being, you are a soul in the well of souls. Whatever that means, we're still trying to discover exactly what the soul and consciousness are. There's a lot of scientists who believe that the soul is much like consciousness, a set of axioms and perfectly set up and demonstrable in some way or another equations of fields of energy. But what do you experience in that soul place, right? So before we are human, before we experience humanity, what could be? And more importantly, what if we chose humanity? What if all souls, let's say regardless of if we are greater beings or we're something else that puts on a helmet or something and experiences life, and then when you die in life, they take the helmet off you, or the helmet gets lifted up, and you're just like, oh my God, what happened? Where's my wife? Where's my life? And slowly the realness sinks back. Or if it's, excuse me, a lot harder to understand, and it's more so like your soul, and once you shed your humanity, you become part again of the general consciousness and of all that is conscious. And it's not like you feel pain or loss or anything because you're not in a body anymore. No, quite the opposite. You basically feel like you might feel when you have a really good idea and you're about to get to writing it down, and you start writing it down and it's just pounding. The more you're writing, the more it's coming, and it feels good because it is good. And you just let that flow continue. I I could I could definitely believe that the soul is simply that, and that is where everything comes from, and that maybe even the interdimensional beings or interdimensional multiverse aliens that we've been hearing about in the news and in congressional whistleblower meetings and such, they could they could just be more of like an energy in tune with something that humanity needs at that time. And when the time is right, it reveals itself, probably less so of either of our choosing, and more so of the circumstances being perfect, being right, much like constellations lining up in very odd patterns. Because at the end of the day, even the constellations are just stars exploding billions and billions of miles away. And that brought me to, okay, so what is reality? If real is real to me, what does real really mean? What does it have to be for all people? Because the older I get, the more I realize that 90% of reality is lived in people's heads. 90% of reality is you walking into a room and everybody's expectations of what you are, what they know you to be, and their memories of you being pressed or pressured upon you. And, you feel like yourself acting like yourself. But more so, I mean that reality is not just physical things, you know? I strongly believe that thoughts, inspiration, when when you close your eyes and you can picture something, or even better, when you have your eyes wide open and you see something in your mind's eye, but it's like a fully detailed, colored image of, maybe a place you've never been before, or maybe a loved one that you have seen and that has passed away. I believe that those things are definitely 100% as real as this table or as anything. So the more I dig into it, and the more I listen to these talks on consciousness and the souls and aliens and reality, interdimensionals, and the telepathy tapes, which I highly recommend everybody looks into. The telepathy tapes are great. I'll dumb it down real quick. Some lady is a scientist and she works with autistic kids who allegedly their mothers came in to these doctors and they told them, like, I don't want to sound crazy, I don't know what it is, but like, I swear to God, this kid can read my mind. He reads thoughts. Like, I'll be thinking of something, I'll look at him, and he'll say, no, no, mom. And, oh my God, you know? And it's not just like one case. There's been a bunch of these people. And this lady who started the telepathy tapes has been recording them and doing these different exercises with kids and their parents. And I believe some of them are also just like between two of these kids, where like they'll try to see, like, all right, well, if both of these kids can understand what their parents are feeling and thinking all the time, maybe they can understand and feel and think what each other's thinking. And it's very interesting. I highly recommend it. One of the kids, when asked like what he believes it is and how he can do it, one of the more savant ones said that I just love her so much that it's easy to basically get in her head, and I put myself in her shoes and I can think what she's thinking. I can see what she's seeing to some extent. And that was amazing to me, because although sadly I am not autistic, sorry to disappoint, I've had that experience a lot of times. I mean, from when I was a little kid to now, I've had experiences where I don't know if it was at some point, in my young adulthood, reignited or inspired by doing psychedelics and all of these like meditative experiences that I've had meditating by myself in dark rooms and in the forest, or, in nature in my backyard. But I often feel like if I am in the right place, that's the hardest part about it, is your mind can't be racing. You can't be racing all these thoughts where, when you're in the groove of things, a lot of times you'll just be trying to think about something positive and something you enjoy, because the second you let that go and you just bills come up, oh, this bill is coming up and I've got to pay for this. Is this bill going to hit at the right time? Will I have enough money in my account? Or should I try to transfer some money over from my savings into, you know, you have to be able to quiet all of that down. And I find that a lot of times when I can quiet all of that down within myself, and after I've gone through a good amount of meditation, of just whatever transcendental or mantra chanting meditation I'm doing, a lot of times I start going through people I am grateful for and people I love, my family members, my family friends back in Romania, my friends in California, my sister and my niece in Romania. I will focus on somebody I love really hard, and it's like I'll almost try to put myself into their mind, just thinking about them and the love I have for them, and sometimes some of the good times we've had together. And I will slowly begin to feel like I can look through their eyes. Like, if I focus hard enough and in the right state, I can almost see what you are seeing. I can almost hear what you are hearing in a very light, muffled sort of way. For me personally, it's much more the visual of like I can see through your eyes, and when you look down, I can see your hands and all of that. And honestly, I haven't been practicing this, but it's been happening in moments where I am very calm and peaceful, and I don't have any pressing issues on my mind at the time for years now, at least 15, maybe 20 years. And I never really talked about it. I still don't think I've talked to anybody about this because nobody has ever brought any tangentially related topic like this up. And what do you look like bringing up telepathy in front of your family at Thanksgiving dinner? They're gonna be like, yeah, okay, he's on drugs again. And then when you tell them that no, it actually happens more so when I'm not on anything and I'm just completely still. It's I believe that all humans actually have this power, and for a long time now, Joe Rogan's been talking about eventually he believes that humans will communicate completely through thought, a lot like how a lot of these alien experiences that you hear about are where people will say that they saw an alien. They walked up to one walked up to them or something. They were in the ship, and the alien just doesn't move its mouth or anything, but they can feel it telepathically speaking to them, and they understand everything it's trying to communicate, and they're speaking back to it, but they're not using any words, it's all intention and feeling. And I'm a strong believer that a lot of the noise in the world and all of these distractions and the scrolling, the constant tick, 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 scroll, scroll, scroll. I need another hit of this random shitty video shit, I think a lot of that is created by some evil force out there with the intention that if we distract these children and these people enough and we get them detached enough from just sitting in their own bodies and in their own feeling and in their own uniqueness, then maybe, just maybe, we might be able to prevent the next great inventor. We might be able to prevent an alleged reincarnation of Nikola Tesla from starting to make his first inventions that will lead to all of humanity being able to have and access free energy, whether that be free electricity or whatever form it may come in. I am a big believer that some rich people or oligarchs or kings and queens back in the day came upon these realizations because they had the time to. They weren't worried about finding their next piece of bread. They weren't worried about feeding all of their family. They had everything. They could not complain. They could not complain. And they thought, they philosophized. They discussed. And they wouldn't get mad and, oh, I'm not talking to you. Oh, I don't associate with this person. We had a disagreement. No, they would purposefully push at each other because it would make them think more and find new resolutions to shit. And eventually, I'm sure there was, a group of oligarchical rulers who all loved each other so much or had so much respect and admiration for each other and would speak in long, eloquent ways until eventually they wouldn't, because they knew what the other person was thinking. And it's like, all right, thank you, my brother. I'm back to ruling the kingdom and finding another great mind to associate with. So, yeah, in conclusion, life is a mystery. The past is history, but today is the present. And that's why it is called a gift. But yeah, life is a great mystery. I'm not sure that there is any difference between, the collective consciousness, the greater consciousness force in the world, and individual consciousness. I've heard a lot of yogis preaching Buddhism, and I'm pretty certain that I at least understand and can relate or empathize a little bit maybe with the concept of being part of the collective consciousness, and that individuality is completely an illusion, that we're raised basically being taught and learning by watching everybody we grow up around. But once you can see and understand that it is an illusion and we are all part of this, basically great force that all started with a giant explosion from the best of what physicists can tell and science, the Big Bang. And everything's just been expanding outward and being a beautiful fireworks show, I guess, going off through all of what is now the universe since the beginning of time, which I think the last I heard was allegedly 32 billion, I think, years ago. It used to be like 15 or 16, and I think a lot of places are still under 20, that the universe is like under 20 billion years old. I don't know why it matters that we know the exact amount of time. Like, how can we use that to our knowledge? But recently, I've heard other scientists say that it could be as far back as 32 billion years old since the expansion started, and everything has been everythinging. And yeah, now here we are, listening to this podcast, recording this podcast, members of the Church with Bo. Well, I think this was a good talk. I might do more of these. I might, mix it up a little bit and try to get a little spacey and get some news articles in there, just so we know what we're all thinking on things and that we are thinking about things, because there's always something going on. And with the news feeds today, the 24-hour news cycles, all of that, it just seems like somebody might not hear some of the stories we cover. And sometimes they're so crazy and all over the place that everybody at my job's talking about it, the family's talking about it, so I end up coming out here and trying to find some news that I think might not have been really covered, along with some that might, but I kind of enjoyed our descent into, I don't know what amateur, what field of science I might have been talking about, whether that was physics or just what realm of science consciousness falls under, neuroscience maybe. But regardless, I hope you had a great time, and I hope to see you back here next week. Good night.